when diaspora itself was a well in condition, when diaspora looks at as a more global affinity towards the Indian diaspora, felt that Indian diaspora is being unfairly treated by a certain segment of the Democratic Party, and that started little bit resentment and transition from those who were much more activist or local or looking into the global affairs and Indian affairs, that shifting from the Democrats to the Republican mindset.
Do you think part of this last administration's problems with India stem from that Howdy Modi event where Mr. Modi went out and said, Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar, or, things like that? Do you think a lot of resentment
The
was
first
growing
thing
from
that
there,
let
or was it
me
from earlier?
correct that I was in the event and Modi ji never said that ab ki baar Trump Sarkar, and that is for the record. That's one thing. Second thing that uh, by and large it might have been little bit on the Democrat supporters, but administration was not against, in a way that Biden was much more centrist because he has been there in the politics for 50 years of this one, so he was centrist. And also, President Biden carried forward President Trump's policies, particularly South Asia and Indo-Pacific. It has been remarkable. There was friction around India's position on the Ukraine. That is for sure, but it was nothing to do with Howdy Modi. President Biden actually did the historic welcome in 2023 at the White House, and I was there in that and some of these events and etc. It was a historic in the Congress and etc. However, there was since the policies of Modi 2.0, that is the second term, they were much more coinciding with much more policy shifts, whether they were not the business as usual, whether it comes to Article 370 or it is comes to Ram Mandir or etc. The extreme liberal, where it actually in United States is a paradigm shift was happening, was the radicalization of the left and the nexus between the some of the Islamic entities with that. That had a influence on the certain segment of the democratic operators, while the White House itself, and if you look at the State Department, but Anthony Blinken and etc., there was a marvelous relationship between external minister Jaishankar ji and others, and good coordination actually the last few years. But there was a particularly Democratic Party, some certain segment, the ultra progressive segment, they had active campaign against India, but it was nothing to do with the Howdy Modi, but it was a lot of things about the policies and the nexus between the few entities, whether it sometimes we thinks or suspect Pakistan's role, or no, definitely, but Islamic agencies, the liberal extremes, also some of the extreme Khalistani separatists, there was a nexus was emerging, and they had a constant campaign against India, not just Modi in
Mhm.
general, but India in specific. And that had impacted a lot of this resentment. But the policy of the administration, at least in the first 3 years, was not the surprisingly what happened after the whole the defeat of Kamala Harris. There are certain things immediately. I think that the post that actions were much more worrisome. Like for example, F-16 granting to Pakistan happened later on. There were a lot of rush thing was happening, like say billions of dollars were given to Ukraine, or even if you look at it, so left liberal extreme agenda has suddenly surfaced. That also shows that underlying bias against certain India or the certain element of the global stage. So one thing that
So,
I would say that Trump 2.0, Trump is a very changed person. Like we can notice
mhm.
that from Trump 1.0 to Trump 2.0, the kind of the tag of unpredictability of the first term. I don't think that if you really look at it, his campaign was very well disciplined, and he really stayed within the lane, and that really helped him to win. So I would say that he would continue the path. He is very focused. His team is very focused. And one important thing that I would like to highlight in the conclusion, see, External Minister Dr. Jaishankar is in town, And new Secretary of State Marco Rubio's first bilateral international meeting is with India with him. And first, any alliance related, any international alliance of United States, that related meeting is Quad. Both are related to India, and that really shows a significance important that this administration will give and the priority to the US-India relations and the global affairs.